through London to Damascus, where has gathered another gigantic convoy, Viva Palestina 5, headed for Gaza, and the latest whether Israel likes it or not. Crime, and to paraphrase Talleyrand, it's worse than a crime, it's a blunder to try to starve people's children, to punish their parents for how they voted in the only free, fair, democratic election ever held in any Arab country, any time in all history. Not because I'm a supporter of Hamas. I am not a supporter of Hamas. If I was a supporter of Hamas, surely people know me well enough by now. If I was, I would tell you that I was. I am not, nor have I ever been, a supporter of Hamas. But I am a supporter of democracy. And the only entitled to choose the leadership of the Palestinian people are the Palestinian people. So we will continue to break this siege until it is ended, because this siege is described by virtually every government in the world except your own as extraordinary that the President of the United States can describe this blockade as illegal, unsustainable, that it must end, that it's intolerable, unacceptable, that the British Prime Minister, a Conservative Prime Minister, can, as he did in Turkey a couple of weeks ago, describe Gaza as an open-air prison camp. The only country in the world, and I mean the only one, which continues to be ready to be a trumpet for the most extreme Israeli politicians that we've ever seen, is the government of Canada. And that's bad for Canada. People ask me why I'm here. Well, I'm here to try to persuade you that it cannot be in Canada's interests to reduce itself from a country that was once admired, respected, even loved in the world, to being no more than an embassy for Benjamin Netanyahu in the world. But it's also bad for the Middle East. And so, it falls to us to redouble our efforts here in this country to persuade people that not only is it wrong, not only is it a crime to support the starvation of the people of Gaza, it is a blunder to do so. Have they never asked themselves why radical Islamist organizations are becoming stronger in Palestine, in Egypt, in every part of the Muslim world? Can't they understand that it's the double standards and the injustice visited by Western countries on the Muslim world that is fueling a clear blue sky. They come out of a swamp of bitterness and hatred, which is sown by those double standards and that injustice. Well, someone asks about the media. When I was in Turkey when I got the news with the convoy that we'd won this case. And then, within minutes of having been told by my lawyers that we'd won this case, I started to receive Google alerts from one Canadian newspaper after another. Every single one of them had a headline which says, "Galloway lost." Well, if this is what losing looks like, that they can tell you on Wednesday that Galloway lost, knowing as they must have done that Galloway would be at the airport on Saturday. They took you for fools. Let's focus now, if we may, on what has to be done.
Get rid of Stephen Harper, he's a dictator.
Cabinet is a shame on him and an affront to democracy. And much more important than any of this is the situation of the Palestinian people themselves. Gaza, you know about. 25 miles long, 4.5 miles wide. 1.65 million people locked in, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, 80% of them refugees, 80% of them living on less than $1 a day, 80% of them unemployed, 80% of their children medically malnourished or undernourished according to the United Nations Children's Department. Women going out in the mornings, in the mist, clambering over garbage heaps, trying to find food with which to feed their families for that day, regularly bombed, attacked from land, sea and air, unable to escape, unable to get in. If they're out, doctors operating in hospitals where the electricity cuts off and plunges the operating theatre into darkness, where patients die on the operating table because they have no medical equipment that's functioning, where even the doctors can't have clean white coats because no detergent has been allowed in because detergent is banned under this blockade. Spent years telling us didn't exist. Indeed, there's fools outside telling the television cameras that it doesn't exist. On the 2nd of June this year, Israel announced that henceforth tomato ketchup and mayonnaise would now be allowed into the Gaza Strip, which means that before the 2nd of June, tomato ketchup and mayonnaise was banned from the Gaza Strip. You might well be asking, what could conceivably be dangerous about tomato ketchup and mayonnaise? But that just goes to show you because there are either no ambulances to take them to the hospital, or the ambulances themselves are bombed and rocketed, and the ambulance personnel murdered in their ambulances along with their patients. Schools and universities barely functioning. Families who can't afford to send their children to school or university. Universities without textbooks, without computers, without the basics that once made the Palestinian child the most educated child in the whole of the Arab Middle East. Now being laid waste by this embargo. Unable to export anything at all. Unable to import even mayonnaise until the 2nd of June. But in any case, nobody's got any money to buy ketchup or mayonnaise. 80% of them living, as I said, on $1 a day. But that's just Gaza. What about Jerusalem? The holy city of Jerusalem being ethnically cleansed of its Arab, Christian and Muslim population, their houses demolished, being replaced by absolutely illegal settlements. The next time you hear reference to, as I heard on Canadian television this morning, Jewish housing units. They're not Jewish housing units, and the fact that they're Jewish is the least important thing. They're illegal colonies, illegal settlements on somebody else's land. Some of my security comes from Jenin. You know, Jenin refugee camp, 1 square kilometer, where 17,000 families live, is within sight of the shining city of Haifa on the Mediterranean. That's significant, because all the refugees were driven out of Haifa, and from the roofs of their shanty town in Jenin refugee camp, they can see their own houses, their own gardens being lived in by foreigners from New York, from Toronto, from London, enjoying their property while they live in a refugee camp. That's the way of this whole affair. And they wonder why the people in the Jenin refugee camp might be particularly angry to have lived for 62 years in